So I thought, now let's focus on his father, right? I'm looking for something to attach Oscar to Beryl, presumably, if this is a family that is important enough to have wedding announcements in the newspaper. Maybe we will be able to stumble upon something between Oscar and Beryl. Now, I want to remind you that Kamala brought up Oscar J. Harris, her grandfather, in her book, and she reveals a picture of him on page 282. So I'm going to show you that right now. It reads, "When I was 10 months old, I visited Spanish Town, Jamaica. This is me with my mother and my paternal grandfather, Oscar Joseph." So we know his name is Oscar Joseph Harris, and we know that that's what he looks like thanks to Kamala Harris's book. Great, love that. So I looked him up, and at first the father came up for a bankruptcy hearing announcement. This is dated, by the way, March 11th, 1939. So this would have been 1 year after Donald was allegedly born. It just reads, "In the matter of bankruptcy petition against Reginald Victor Harris, Oscar Joseph Harris, and Newton Alexander Harris of Brownstown in the parish of St. Anne, trading as Harris Bros, take notice that the above named intend to apply for the revocation of the provisional order of bankruptcy made against them in this honorable court on the 6th day of January 1939. Okay, so we know that they were apparently going through some bankruptcy proceedings, and they were fighting those bankruptcy proceedings. They were going to stand against them. But what's relevant there is that we know it's him because it lists his brothers. It lists that they're from Browntown, and we have fact-checked that genealogy. So this is the correct family. This is the grandfather that Kamala is referring to in her book. Here is where it is going to get crazy. Buckle up. I really hope you guys are sitting for this. He came up again, and fortunately, it was for a wedding. Unfortunately, it was not for a wedding to Beryl. Instead, just like Beryl married somebody else, apparently he married somebody else. Now, this clipping is from June 9th, 1952. Look at this. It says, "Oscar Harris weds Vioris Cambridge." Now, I want you to look at this photo, and it certainly looks like, and I know it's a shadow on the left-hand side, but I'm going, that looks like the picture. You can tell by that balding pattern of the person that Kamala has presented to us as her grandfather. And he looks mixed race to me, but that woman on the right looks white to me. Now, I know you're going, Candace, that's crazy. It's a black and white photo, but you know, there's a certain way when you're photographing a black woman that she comes across, and that ain't it, my friends. But again, that was a theory. Let's read the article. It reads, "Vioris Cambridge, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. V.S. Cambridge of St. Elizabeth," that's another parish in Jamaica, "became the bride of Oscar Harris of Browntown, St. Anne, at a beautiful ceremony in the St. Andrew Parish Church, Halfway Tree, on Thursday last night. Her slenderness enhanced by a gown of white nylon and chantilly lace. The bride, carrying a bouquet of white asters, was given in marriage by her father. Her only attendant, her sister, Carmen Cambridge, wore a gown of aqua nylon and chantilly lace with a bouquet of pink rosebuds. The best man in the ceremony, performed by the Reverend Grant Levi of Montego Bay, was Mr. Newton Harris, brother of the groom. During the signing of the register, Mr. Jean MacDonald sang, 'I'll Walk Beside You,' and 'Because,' at a reception held at the home of the bride's uncle on Chester Avenue, Mr. Milton Hamilton was master of ceremonies." I just went, what the heck is this? First and foremost, how odd that Donald J. Harris, as he's recollecting these memories from his childhood, now has left out the part where Beryl married someone when he would have been 6 years old and would have been his stepfather. But he's also now leaving out the fact that his mother similarly married someone when he was a little bit older. I mean, that his father similarly married someone when he was a little bit older, and that woman, at least according to my eyes, appears to me to be fully Caucasian. But I said, that sounds crazy. Let me see if I can find this woman, Vioris Cambridge, by a quick Google search. Like, where? That's quite a different name, Vioris. I've never heard it before. Certainly something's going to pop up. And certainly just one thing did. And it was a funeral entry of a white woman who died in Broward County. And what I noticed about this entry was that it was very scant on details. I'm going to show this to you, okay? Vioris Anita McPherson, it says. And I'm looking at that face on the left there, and I'm going, I recognize that face. This woman looks familiar to me. Am I crazy? Are you guys seeing this? She looks a little bit like Kamala Harris. There's something about the smirk. I don't know. Am I crazy? So I said, let me not jump to conclusions. Maybe I am just so down far the rabbit hole that I'm seeing Kamala's face. So I read this entry, and it says, it is with great sadness that the family of Vioris Anita Harris McPherson, Cambridge, in parentheses, so we know that that's her maiden name right there, announces her passing on Saturday, June 15th, 2019. She will be lovingly remembered by her children and spouses, her grandchildren and spouses, her great-grandchildren, cousins, nieces, nephews, and friends. We will celebrate her life on Saturday, June 29th, 2019 at 10 o'clock a.m. at Christ the Rock Community Church. It gives the address there, and it says where they will immediately follow at a reception hall. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made to the Alzheimer's Foundation in memory of Vioris Harris McPherson. So nothing given to us there, literally nothing given to us about our family. Have you ever seen that? Usually survived by a sister, a cousin, a brother. I went to see if anybody posted anything. It says she has a really big family. I was like, okay, well, certainly somebody would have posted on the board. You know, people do that all the time. I'm so sorry for your loss. Love you. Cousin, I'll see you there. Hug, kisses, nothing. Very weird. I then tried to look this woman up in Broward County records, and it just looks like people are trying to protect who she was. It doesn't tell me who she's married. I don't see anything there in Broward County. It just says an entry for a marriage that took place in 1994. And I also see that she's got another name there, McPherson, so maybe she got remarried. But it at least tells us that her birthday was October 7th, 1927. So I thought to myself, can I find a woman, a white woman who was born in Jamaica with that exact birth date, with that exact name? It's, like I said, a very different name, Vioris. And the answer is yes, we did. We were able to locate her birth certificate. And now we know why it said that she was married to V.S. Cambridge. It had listed her father as V.S. Cambridge, Mr. and Mrs. V.S. Cambridge. That's because her father's name is Vivian. Her mother's name is Adina Wright. And here you have it, born in Elizabeth. St. Elizabeth is, here she is. This is this woman, Vioris Cambridge, born to Vivian Cambridge and Adina Wright on October 7th, 1927 in St. Elizabeth, Jamaica. What the hell is going on? Who is this woman? Why hasn't this been mentioned? Why does it feel like this profile was being very hidden? And again, as Donald was jumping in to his family background and speaking about how Jamaican it was, why didn't he mention this? Why didn't he mention this woman, his white relatives? It might be relevant when we're having a discussion about Kamala's race to mention the fact that your dad married a white woman. I'm just saying, here's another picture of her. And there's something familiar about her smile. There's something familiar. I'm looking at this woman, I'm going, this woman looks to me like Kamala Harris. Now, something even weirder, the person who did create something for her online, okay, who created a profile for her on Ancestry.com, look what he put in the middle of her name. He lists her name as Vioris Anita Iris Cambridge. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So we looked into this briefly. And again, all of this has transpired within the last 4 hours. So we are not as organized about this, or we are not as certain about this, but it looks like the person who made this entry was a member of her extended family. It looks like she got remarried in 1994. In America and that's where she picks up the name McPherson, and that individual put Iris in quotation marks. Is it possible that Donald J. Harris, when he's fondly remembering Miss Iris, could be speaking about this woman? Yeah, it's possible. Everything's a possibility. Like I said, he's very scant on the details here. What we do know is that he declined to mention this woman. He declined to mention someone that his father married who was completely white. And as I said, I wouldn't have an issue with this if people were forthcoming and spoke about this. The press, as you're out there referring to Janet Jackson as crazy, right, for suggesting, what did Janet Jackson say? She said that she heard that Kamala's father, Donald J. Harris, was Irish. Can somebody pull up that picture of yours again? She heard that his family was Irish. I think Vioris, maybe Vioris, Cambridge, might be Irish. Was she so crazy to mention that, press? Would it be so crazy if you guys did your actual job and looked into these things as opposed to constantly trying to obscure things to protect your preferred candidates because you believe she should just be handed this? Now the question is it possible that the woman that we're looking at right there is Kamala's grandmother? Is it possible, based on the records that we have, that Beryl and Donald never did marry? Is it possible Beryl and Oscar, never did marry? Is it possible, is it feasible that that marriage never took place and they both married two different people, and that instead at some point when they decided to blackify Kamala's history, they included this Beryl as her grandmother? Is it possible? I don't want to go too far down conspiracy lane, but I'm telling you that we're close here. This is a big missing piece of her family history that should have been mentioned, okay? And I find it highly suspicious. I do not think that we have answers still on who Donald Harris is. I do not trust him. I do not trust him just having discovered this information and realizing that he left out two significant marriages and is instead focusing on Kamala's great-grandmother, referring to her as Miss Iris. Who is Miss Iris actually? I can tell you that, again, we came across all of this in the last few hours, but we're going to stay on them because now that we have found this piece and we have found this white woman, and again, I'm not trying to call her out for being a white woman, I'm just saying that, like, she is a white woman. She's very white. And Janet Jackson was not crazy to suggest this. And now we know that somebody is putting her in quotation marks as Iris, and a picture is starting to come together. Let me say this. If, and I'm not saying this is true, but if we find out that that woman is Kamala's real grandmother, and can we get a side-by-side of Kamala? If we find out that that is Kamala's real grandmother and that she decided to appropriate the domestic help who potentially died younger as her grandmother, we are watching one of the most diabolical political moves that we have ever seen in the history of this country.